In this presentation, we'll go over the solutions to this set of practice problems. So we have an interesting case here on the first one. So we've got two assumptions, P arrow T and T arrow S. And our conclusion is a conditional statement. So we know that we're going to assume the left-hand side and look to build the right-hand side. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, following the same pattern as I've done before. So we'll mark that as a PA. That's our antecedent to our conclusion. We'll give it a 3. And what we'll do is we'll separate this P out from 3. So that's going to be just 3. And we'll get T from there. So that'd be 1 and 4, arrow out. Oops. Try to clean that up a little bit. 1 and 4, arrow out. So that'd be 1 and 3. Excuse me. And then we'll take that T, we'll toss it in the conditional statement up there in 2. So that will be 2 and 5, arrow out. 2 and 5, that's 1, 2, and 3. And that's the consequent we're looking to get to. So we've got Q and P, arrow S, from 3 is our PA, 6 is our consequent. We're introducing an arrow, so that's 1, 2, 3. Drop out the 3. So we don't need that. So that's the answer to this problem. Now you might be wondering, well, I didn't do anything with that Q, so why am I assuming Q and P? Why am I not just assuming P and then getting to the consequent S? And the answer is because our conclusion is a conditional statement. It's saying if you had this as a premise, would you get to this consequent? Would you get to this result, namely S? And so that's what we're proving. We're not proving using the least amount of information that we need. We're saying if I was given this statement, Q and P, could I get to S? And so you have to assume the whole thing, the whole antecedent Q and P, and then build towards S, and then you can arrow in the Q and P to get to S. So it's important to know that you're assuming everything that's on the left-hand side of that arrow in the conclusion, not just what you need to get to the consequent. Now we're getting into some of the longer proofs. So it's not any more complicated. We still only have 5 rules to go off of, but it takes a little bit more time to do them and just takes a lot more repetition, recognizing what you're trying to do in each proof and then going from there. So we have these two premises that we'll list as assumptions. Now looking at our conclusion again is a conditional statement. So we will assume the left-hand side and we'll look to get to this consequent as our, we'll try to derive the consequence so we can arrow it in. So we got P, we'll mark as a PA, provisional assumption, and we're looking to get to L and S. So what I can do with P is I can toss it into the conditional statement in 1. So I get Q and T. It's a bad ampersand there. Go. So Q and T from 1 and 3, arrow out, 1 and 3, like that. Now I can get my other conditional statement out if I get the T out from this first. So from 4 ampersand out, 1 and 3. And the reason I'm looking here, this is the next thing that I'm going to operate on. I'm going to do my conditional statement 2. And how can I operate on my conditional statement? Well, I need the antecedent. And the only way I can get to that antecedent is by building it. So I need one of the disjuncts. I either need T or R, and then I'll wedge in the other one. So I can get T from this conjunction here in line 4. So that's what I did. And then I'm just going to wedge in the R, doing 5, wedge in. So that's 1 and 3. And now I've got the antecedent here to the second conditional, so I can get S and L from 2 and 6, arrow out. And now I'm looking for L and S, so I have it here. I just need to break it down and build it back up. So that's what I'll do. I'll break down 7 into S and L. And then I'll build it back up in the way that I need it by doing 8 and 9 ampersand in. And then now I've got to my consequent and my conclusion. I can build my arrow like so. My PA is in line 3. Line 10 is where my consequence at. I'm doing arrow in. So 1, 2, and 3. The premise associated with the PA drops out because we're doing arrow in. And so that is our proof for 2. And again, the idea is that we look at our conclusion. Our conclusion is a conditional. We assume the left-hand side and we look to build the right-hand side. And so we just followed everything that we could and got the conditional statements out that we had from 1 and 2 and then started building from there. So again, game plan for each one of these problems and just executing that. Moving on to 3, this one is also a little bit different. So starting with our premises again here in the very beginning, mark these as assumptions. Then looking at our conclusion, it is a conditional statement, so we want to assume the left-hand side and look to build the right-hand side. So we'll mark R as a PA, and we'll look to get to T and R. So looking at what we've got a conditional statement in line 1. Do we have its antecedent? No, but we can build it by getting Q from 2 and out. And then we can wedge in P to that Q. So that'd be 4 wedge in. And then we can get the T out from 1 and 5, arrow out. 1 and 5 be 1 and 2. Now, to get to our conclusion, or our consequent of our conclusion, we just need to put R and T together in the right order. So that would be 3 and 6 ampersand in. 3 and 6 are 1, 2, and 3. Then we have our conditional statement to build using 3 as our PA, 7 as our consequent. We're doing arrow in, so it's 1, 2, and 3. We'll knock out the 3 because we did arrow in, and so that is problem 3. Moving on to problem 4, we've just got one premise here. In this problem, we have P or Q, arrow R, arrow T, and our conclusion is a conditional statement. So we're going to assume the left-hand side and look to build the right-hand side. Here it's just T. Now, I'm going to remove the P here from 2 ampersand out because I want to build this wedge to get my conditional statement out from line 1. So now that I've got this, I can toss it into my conditional statement in line 1 and I can get R arrow T. So that's going to be from 1 and 4 arrow out. So it's going to be 1 and 2. Now I'm trying to get towards T. So I will remove the R from 2 using my ampersand out. And Then I'll toss it into this conditional statement, and I will get t. So from 5 and 6, I get, or 5 and 6 arrow out, I get t. And then that's the consequent of my conclusion. It depends upon my PA and 2. So I just build my arrow. 2 is my PA, 7 is my consequent, arrow in. 1 and 2, the 2 will drop out because we do arrow in and it's the PA. So that is our proof for problem 4. Now on to problem 5, we got 2 different premises to start off with. And again, our conclusion is a conditional statement, so we'll assume the left-hand side here is a PA, and we'll look to get to our consequent here. So based on what we've got, we can toss our P into our conditional statement in line 1 to get just Q. So that's 1 and 3, arrow out, 1 and 3. Then we can, need the T there, we can build the wedge that we need for second, or for conditional in the second line. So we'll do that. We'll do Q or S from 4, wedge in, 1 and 3. Then we can do T from 2 and 5, arrow out, 1, 2, and 3. Now I've got T, I've got Q, so I just need to put them together. So that's going to be 4 and 6, ampersand in. And then we've got our PA, which is P in line 3. We've got our consequent of our conclusion in line 7 here. So we'll just build our conditional. 3 is our PA, 7 is the consequent. We're introducing the arrow in. That's 1, 2, and 3. The PA drops out, so it's just 1 and 2. Moving on to 6, we've got 2 premises. We have P or Q, arrow, S and T. And we've got T, arrow, R. Mark them both as assumptions, 1 and 2. Our conclusion is a conditional, so we will assume the left-hand side. Mark it as a PA, 3. And then we're going to look to build this huge monstrosity here. And to do that, we're going to need one of these disjuncts. We don't have L arrow T anywhere, so we probably aren't going to get that. We just need R by itself. We'll wedge in the L arrow T, so we know we're looking to get to R. So to get to R, we need to get the conditional statement out of line 1. To do that, we got to wedge in the P, so that'd be P and Q from 3, wedge in, 3. Then we can do 1 and 4, arrow out to get S and T. So that's going to be from 1 and 4, arrow out, 1 and 3. Then we can get our T by itself from 5, ampersand out. And that will give us our antecedent to the conditional statement here in line 2. So we can get R by itself in line 7. So that's going to be from 2 and 6, arrow out. Then we want to wedge in this other disjunct of our consequent. So we'll just do L, arrow, T as a wedge in to our R. So that's 7, wedge in, 2, 3. Then we can build our conditional statement that we're looking to prove, because we have our antecedent as a conditional statement. We've got our consequent derived in our proof. So we got our PA at 3. We've got our consequent at 8. We're doing arrow in, so it's going to be 1, 2, and 3. 3 will drop out from us doing arrow in. Moving on to problem 7, we've got 2 premises here. And like all the other problems, our conclusion is an arrow, so we know that we need to assume the left-hand side of our conclusion as a PA, and then derive the right side of that conditional statement. So we need to get to this Q, and then we can add the P in later. To get to the Q, we gotta get through our first conditional statement there in line 1. So we gotta build it. So first we gotta wedge in our Q. 3 wedge in. And then we gotta wedge in our S to our P or Q. So it's gonna be 4 wedge in. Now we can get the T out in line 1 from 1 and 5, arrow out. 1 and 5, that's 1 and 3. And then we've got T, so we can get our Q out in line 2 from 2 and 6, arrow out. 1, 2, and 3. Now we just need to put our Q and P together from 3 and 7, ampersand N, 2 and 3. Then we just need to do our conditional in, like so. Our PA is at 3, our consequent is at 8, doing arrow in, we got 1, 2, and 3. So we will cut out this 3 because we did arrow in, we drop out the PA. So that is problem 7. Moving on to problem 8, this one should be pretty easy. We've got 2 premises here, mark them with assumptions. Remember, our rule is that we have to assume everything on the left-hand side of an arrow if it's in our conclusion. So we'll do that. So we'll assume the whole left-hand side and mark it as a PA. We'll look to derive the right-hand side. So we see that we got 2 conditional statements, and now we've got the 2 antecedents to them by breaking up our PA. Like that. Then we'll just do both of these conditional statements one in a row, or one after the other. So we'll get T from 1 and 5, arrow out. 1 and 5 is 1 and 3. We'll get S out from 2 and 4. 2 and 4. And then we'll just put T and S together. That's 6 and 7. Ampersand in. 6 and 7. It's 1, 2, and 3. That was the consequent we are looking to get to. We've got our PA here in line 3. So we will build our conditional statement like that. From 3 and 8, arrow in. 1, 2, and 3. We'll drop out the 3 since we did our arrow in. And we built it using our PA. So that is problem 8. Moving on to problem 9, we've got 2 premises here. And our conclusion is, once again, a conditional statement. So we know that we're going to assume the left side in 3 as a PA. And then we're going to try to get to our consequent, or our right side of our conclusion, which is just L. So we'll toss the P into the first conditional. That's going to be from 1 and 3, arrow out. 1 and 3. Then we're going to separate our T out from 4 to get our antecedent to our second conditional statement. So from 2 and 5, we can get Q arrow L. So it's going to be 2 and 5, arrow out. 1, 2, and 3. Now I just need to separate out the Q from that same ampersand statement and 4. Ampersand out. 4 and 3. Now I'll get L. And so now I got L from 6 and 7. Arrow out. 6 and 7 have 1, 2, and 3. I've got a PA and 3. It depends upon, or my consequent depends upon that PA, which is L. So that's going to be 3 is my PA, 8 is my consequent. I'm doing arrow in. I've got 1, 2, and 3. The PA will drop out, so no 3. And that is problem 9. Now for our 10th problem, we've only got one premise here, and it's a pretty big one. Got P or Q, arrow, S, arrow, T and R. That's our assumption. And then our conclusion is a conditional statement, just like all the other ones. So we'll assume the left side, all of it, and we'll look to get to this right side. And here again, we see a bunch of garbage next to this T, and probably the easiest thing would be just get the T and wedge in the P arrow Q. So let's try and do that. So moving forward, the only thing we got to work with is this conditional statement, so we need the antecedent. We don't have it, but if we separate out the Q from 2, we can wedge in the P in line 4. And now we've got our antecedent to the conditional statement up there in line 1. So we can get this worked out like so. From 1 and 4, arrow out. 1, 4 have 1 and 2 next to it. Now we need the S from our ampersand statement there in 2. Like that. Then we got to take that S, we got to put it into our conditional statement there, and we'll get T and R. From 5 and 6, arrow out. 5 and 6 have 1 and 2 next to them. Now we need to separate out the T, 7, using our ampersand out. And then from there we can wedge in our P arrow Q. Like that. So that's going to be from 8, wedge in. And now we've got to the consequent of our conclusion that we were looking for. It depends upon our our PA. So we'll just arrow in. Like that. So that's going to be PA is in line 2, our consequence in line 9, we're arrowing in, so that's going to be 1 and 2, but the 2 will ultimately drop out because that's our PA and we're doing arrow in. So that's problem 10. Now, as you may have noticed, all of these problems have been conclusions in which the conditional statement is the conclusion, and so just remember, it follows the same process each time. When the conclusion is an arrow, what you do is you assume the left-hand side, or the antecedent, as a PA, and then you look to derive the right-hand side as somewhere in your proof. And then once you derive the right-hand side, you can build the arrow using arrow in, as long as the consequent depends upon the PA assumption. So premises, PA, your left-hand side of the conditional statement in the conclusion. Look to derive the right side, arrow it in. Same thing on each one of them. So that is the last problem here for this problem set. So that will do it.